Good evening, guys. It's Saturday night. It is Pontificating with Pete, excuse me, on revolutionary change. And I totally forgot a couple of things this evening. So I'm actually going to have, this is what happens when you go live, and sometimes you don't even realize it. The quality of the camera is not 100%, and I just realized why, because I don't have my actual camera in. So, Ben, if you can hold the screen down for 2 seconds, I'm going to pop out and pop right back in. Give me 1 sec.
Did not expect to be on camera, but what's up, guys? Glad to see y'all here on Saturday.
That's better. So, as I was saying, please make sure that you we're not freeing anybody tonight. Everybody's on board for a little bit of fun. Obviously, we've got a number of interesting stories we're going to get to. And if you guys have not smashed that like button as of yet, please make sure that you do. I'm going to have to write it out again. But Holly, always coming in sharp right at the beginning. Like, share, subscribe. Make sure you do all those things we ask you to do. It really helps out the channel a great deal. We're going to start off with a story that we wanted to get to on Thursday night. We didn't have the time to get to it, but we're going to get to it now. And this is a story that many of you have probably been noticing that has been killed by CBS News, Bari Weiss on 60 Minutes. There was a banking situation regarding Jeffrey Epstein. And needless to say, this is something that shouldn't surprise anybody. This is exactly how everything always ends up going down when it comes to international trafficking, anything of that nature. Ben, can I please have the story? Now, there was a story that was released based on the findings of one Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon. And this is very important regarding how we are where we are today. Major banks enabled Epstein's crimes, Democratic senators report asserts. Now, again, this should not come as any surprise, but the bigger surprise, of course, which we're going to get to, is regarding 60 Minutes. Deutsche Bank, JP Morgan, and unfortunately Bank of America, which I have no choice right now, but I have to use them, allegedly helped enable convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein by delaying the screening and reporting of his financial transactions, according to a Senate Finance Committee report published Tuesday. The big picture. The report raises questions about how the three banks failed to stop Epstein from moving hundreds of millions of dollars while he was under investigation for sex trafficking. Senator Wyden, the committee's ranking member, and a team of investigators conducted a multi-year probe into transactions that the report says financed Epstein's crimes. Excuse me. According to Wyden's report, all three banks waited until 2019, after Epstein was arrested on sex trafficking charges, to retroactively flag thousands of questionable transactions that moved more than $1.4 billion in and out of his accounts over the course of nearly 2 decades. So it's not like this was a glaring oversight of a one-time circumstance. No, this is decades and decades of aiding and abetting child sex trafficking, among other things. That included Deutsche Bank later flagging $250 million in suspicious wire transfers, including payments to women in Russia and elsewhere in Eastern Europe. The investigation also alleges that B of A didn't screen and report $170 million in payments from former Apollo Global Management CEO Leon Black, who we know is one of the biggest scum buckets that's ever walked the earth, and unfortunately has escaped due process, to Epstein until 2020. Black was Epstein's single largest source of funding, the report said. Wyden's staff calculated that 90% of Epstein's income over a 5-year period came from Leon Black. Susan Estridge, an attorney for Leon Black, said in a statement, Senator Wyden's assertions are outrageous and false, aren't they always? Calling the report's findings completely baseless. Baseless. They're baseless. No honesty and integrity there. Wyden's report also claims J.P. Morgan Chase likely violated federal anti-money laundering law by underreporting Epstein's activity. The report accuses J.P. Morgan Chase executives of coaching Epstein on how to withdraw cash through shell companies instead of his personal accounts and helping conceal information. Please scroll down, Ben. The report shows exactly how Wall Street protected Epstein and enabled his sex trafficking for decades. The ex-account for Democrats on the Senate's Finance Committee wrote, the American people deserve to know who funded Epstein's sex trafficking crimes. Well, we already have an idea about that. The B of A spokesperson said in a statement, we take our legal and regulatory obligations seriously. And as we have previously said, the bank did not facilitate wrongdoing. Oh, how do you know that? This is what you call running cover. We have a little bit more now, Teresa, but thank you for pointing that out. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, guys, please make sure that you do. In a statement, Deutsche Bank said it regrets its past with Epstein and that it has been transparent in addressing deficiencies and investing in strengthening our controlled environment in parallel. A J.P. Morgan Chase spokesperson told Axios in a statement, we strongly disagree with the report's conclusions, which are based on many false claims contradicted by easily found public information. The spokesperson added that it began flagging suspicious transactions for the government as early as 2002 and acted appropriately to what we knew it, when we knew it, and as the law requires. Yeah, sure you did. One day after Wyden released the report, New Mexico sued Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche and the Justice Department seeking files related to Epstein. The lawsuit claims the DOJ unlawfully withheld records that could identify witnesses, victims, and additional illegal conduct. The state is conducting its own investigation into Epstein following allegations that he trafficked and sexually abused girls and women at a property he owned outside Santa Fe. So as you can see, when you are this wealthy and this powerful, you have a lot of control over a lot of different real estate throughout the United States. And this, again, should come as absolutely no surprise to anybody. But what ultimately is the issue here, and I know a lot of times people want to say, well, it's Jeffrey Epstein, and he definitely bears a brunt of responsibility, which he certainly does. But the systems are in place to protect people like Epstein, to protect people like Trump, to protect all of these organizations. There is a reason why the most powerful individual in this entire fiasco has been Epstein's right-hand man, or should we say his actual benefactor. Leon Black played a big role, but not nearly as big as Les Wexner. He's as big as anybody out there. And he's still walking free. Nothing has come to him directly. Now, a lot of this, as you can imagine, is directly related to everything as it connects to Israel. And that's a big reason why so much of everything we're seeing right now, and I have to say, and we're gonna, I don't want people to think that when it comes to electoral politics, that we should be making any exceptions. And I understand that everybody has a very hard line regarding what we should accept, what we shouldn't accept, and are there ever exceptions to the rule? I know right now there's a lot of people out there who are getting on Abdul El-Sayed for accepting the support from Kamala Harris. As far as I'm concerned, politics is a dirty business. It's a blood sport in many ways. Now, if he turns around and says that he supports her, knowing full well what we know already about his support for these and, you know, her support for the genocide, etc., it's a very interesting power dynamic. But just remember, I said a long time ago, I said this about when Jen was running for office, I will say this now. I want people to remember a very important caveat here. You do not have to be dirty to be in politics. It is not a prerequisite. But you do have to work with people that are. You don't have a choice. If you think you can accomplish anything in this world by not working with people that have succumbed to the system or willfully entered it and embraced it and are now of it, go play in the sandbox, because that's where you'll always play. And again, as I said, you do not have to compromise. When you have an opportunity to play power politics, you have to play it. Now, if you find people getting a little too fast and loose with the truth when it comes to something like genocide or the banking system, I spoke with a good friend a little while ago about what actually went down with Hasan Piker's campaign over in Washington, in Seattle specifically. And it turns out, as many would probably imagine, there's a lot of ego problems that exist in left populist politics. Now, when you get down to brass tacks, when you get down to what the real problem is, you basically have two things that you can do economically in this system. And only two things. You can do BDS and you can form worker co-ops. Those are your two best options within this broken system. It sets the most precedent that you can have for the future. And economically, it does make a difference. If you are willing to hit them where it hurts the most, which is in the pocketbook, then change can happen. There is no other way. Do not allow anybody to fall in a false sense of security thinking that that's the reason. And anytime you get distracted by anything else that is surrounding these circumstances, it's just a distraction, nothing more. And I am not here, and I am not here to just fully scrutinize Hasan Piker, because I have no doubt that she made mistakes. And I can say that because we used our own money to help her. But the ego knows no bounds in politics, even when it's people that are working on behalf of what we're trying to accomplish here in this very broken system. So when we see that people are distracted and are kind of missing the point here as to why the Epstein story is so significant, these problems exist. And unfortunately, we have politicized child sex trafficking in the United States. That's a big problem. And just like when you form these coalitions with various people and you think that you can close off certain areas that, oh, we don't have to work with them, we don't have to, again, I've often said, I am pretty much willing to break any bread with anybody who is not taking the corporate special interest money, and we can figure out ways to communicate, to work together. That also pertains in many respects to what's going on with the genocide, because so much of that is connected. And if it is connected, then where is the solution? The solution will never come from thinking that, and again, I know I use this term loosely because, again, I don't want anybody to think that I am shifting my position, because I'm not. But purity tests, when people complain about them, come in many different forms. If you think that it's not worth in a Democratic primary, if it is to your advantage, for example, or any primary for that matter, to not work with the DSA if they're willing to help you, that's a big mistake. Now, do I think the DSA is perfect? Absolutely not. In fact, I have a lot of problems with them. I think that they are way too loyal to the Democratic Party establishment, but I also think that they do a lot of good grassroots on the ground help for a lot of campaigns that desperately need it. So you have to take the good with the bad. It's not an easy, it's not an easy lane to navigate. It's not. But I also know that when you're trying to break through, that's where the issue of the purity test comes into play, if you can't form enough coalitions with people who are willing to help. Like I said, sandbox, you don't have to be dirtied by the sandbox, but there are people in the sandbox who are dirty. And you have no choice but to play in that box. You just have to protect your area. That's the key. If you guys haven't already, please like and share the stream. And I also do not want anyone to think that you can't win and that the only way to win is to sell out. That's not true. There is an it factor that certain candidates have that I can't put into words. I can't explain what it is. I just know it when I see it. I sense it. And then once you see it, you recognize it. You can't deny it. Zohran Mamdani is somebody who has that. Abdul El-Sayed is another person who has it. The dynamicism of what they bring to the table is something that often supersedes essentially everything else that comes with the issues within the political arena. Certain people are tasked with doing certain jobs or responsibilities, and that's what they have to do. That is their responsibility. That is their cross to bear. That is what they need to do. And if you do not do that, you will never succeed. And the other thing that I mentioned that I think is also very important here is recognizing that when it comes to being involved in electoral politics, presidential elections are the last thing that should be of your concern, because it's the least that you can make an impact on with a grassroots initiative. And I know that there are a lot of people here that are going to get excited about AOC running. Some are also going to get excited about Ro Khanna running. But I'm telling you right now, when you get right down to it, that is the least of your concerns. At least it should be. Most of your concerns are about tangible ways economically that you can make a difference. If the powers that be, like Jeffrey Epstein once did, uses our corporate banking structure to facilitate, whether it's sex trafficking, endless war, corrupt banking initiatives, insider trading, you name it. No interest loans. In addition, you have to remember that there are things that we can do that can make a difference. So don't deny yourselves those avenues where we can really have an impact. One of the ways you tax wealth, if you can't have it done through legislation, is you enact that change at the local and even the state level. BDS works. Where would I tell people to put their money if they're not going to put it in a bank? Put it in hard assets. That's what I always say. And if you could do it without debt, that's the goal. For me, hard assets are real estate and precious metals. So take with that what you can and do what you can with it. That's my advice. It's not a silver bullet. It's not a guarantee. It doesn't mean it's 1000% going to work. But proof is in the pudding that history has always shown that if you can touch it, there's value. That's really where you want to be. And now, as we transition, as we continue, I want to remind people that as much as we have seen this new trend that we're going through right now, and it's an interesting trend because much like the physical, emotional, psychological meltdown that so many Zionists had when Zohran won the mayoral race in New York, in some respects, the fear just comes from the fact that so much of the Zionist control comes in New York City. Now, that's just one part of the equation. New York obviously plays a significant role in all of this, there's no doubt about it. However, what I do want to point out, and this is the big difference here, when it comes to somebody like Abdul El-Sayed, who was able to win his race. Zohran won a race where you had ranked choice voting, and you also had various forms of donation matches, which played a huge role in his ability to take advantage of what the city could offer. Because remember, you're never going to outraise corporate infrastructure, whether it's Adams or Cuomo or anybody else. Or in the case of Michigan, it's Haley Stevens. But in New York City, when you have matching funds, that makes a huge difference. What El-Sayed was able to do in Michigan is monumental in its own right. I said it was monumental for Zoran to win, and I still mean that, and I am not changing my tune on that one at all. But it is 1000% even more monumental what Said was able to do, because he did it statewide in a swing state against everything. The kitchen sink the Israel lobby threw at him, and he was still able to win. Now, I still maintain the biggest reason he was able to win is because he was a great candidate. He is a great candidate because he's still going, and Haley Stevens was terrible. That, as much as anything, was the primary reason he was able to win. With that being said, I have said before that the spiraling of the Zionists is going to be very dangerous and very detrimental to a lot of people. And this is no exception. The violent rhetoric that is going to spew is going to be very aggressive and very dangerous. And the person who appears to be spewing the most right now is Laura Loomer. And in case one wants to forget, and I'm going to share my story in a minute, but I want people to remember who Laura Loomer is. She explained it a couple of months ago with Batya Al-Sargon, I think is how you say her name, on her show.
I am the person who informed the president of everything that Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly and Candace Owens and Alex Jones were saying about him. And despite preparing a lot of these reports for the White House, it's my understanding a lot of this information was not given to explain in full, which is alarming, because you have to ask yourself who surrounding the president is serving as a gatekeeper for the woke Reich.
Well, as it turns out, you are the person who is doing this. She freely admits, I have the president's ear. I am her tattletale. I am her, what you would call the hall monitor. This is her role. And I'm sure she's paid very well to do it, especially when she gets to travel internationally. We can make fun of her looks, and I know a lot of people like to do that. But I want to remind you guys of what I had to deal with Looney Loomer. This is the person who cost me my job. This is the person who got me fired. This is a person who had one of her closest friends reach out to my brokerage here in the Florida Panhandle and tell them, you fire Peter Hager or you're going to have hell to pay. Now, initially, they said they weren't going to give in. And within 24 hours, close of business on a Friday, they sent me an email saying your service is no longer needed here. They never told me who it was, but I was able to piece it together. This person is a lunatic. We call her Looney Loomer for a reason. It isn't because we're trying to score points here. We're saying this because she is an absolutely dangerous individual who is fully protected by our government, all the way to the top, to the President of the United States. So when people wonder, how is it that this psychopath is able to get away with her behavior? How is she so freely able to go out there and talk about, I'm going to end this person's life, I'm going to end that person's life? I'm not going to show the image because it's something like out of The Thing. If anybody's seen The Thing, you'll know what you'll know what I'm referring to. Somebody posted a picture that went viral on X a little while ago. And one of the things that the image showed, which was so telling, it really was. The thing about the image that was very telling was that rather than say, you're effed up, you shouldn't make fun of people's looks, blah, blah, blah. No, what Loomer decided to do was respond and say, hey, that looks like a recent IOF attack on Gaza. She gleefully supports genocide. She gleefully supports mass murder. She don't care. That's why she's doing what she's doing. And if you think for 1 second that she is going to temper her words or potentially go in another direction, oh no. No, she has decided to implement a blood libel, and it isn't just against one person in particular, although Hasan Piker is feeling her wrath as we speak. But this is number one. This is in response. This is in response, mind you, to what happened. This is in response to Abdul El-Sayed winning his race in Michigan. To all my followers, one day you're going to wake up and there will be dozens, if not hundreds, of communities surrounded by Islamic military-age men who are armed. They will simultaneously carry out October 7th style attacks in American communities. And there won't be enough law enforcement to respond. Thousands of Americans will die. It will be a hostage situation. And when it happens, it will be too late to stop what comes next. I want all of my followers to buy ammo and weapons to protect themselves from the jihad that is going to be unleashed on the US. If you can afford to, build a safe room in your home. These people are going to come after you and your children, and anyone who says otherwise is setting you up to be conquered. History shows with what happens when jihadis gain political power. I just hope Americans prepare. I know what the future holds, and it won't be pretty for our country. Please prepare. Don't become a statistic. And this is again, in totality, in response to what she had initially said regarding Abdul El-Sayed's victory. At this point in time, I am convinced the GOP is going to allow Americans to be slaughtered by Muslims. Now, again, like I said, this is the ranting and raving of a crazy person, but nevertheless. Additionally, I would encourage all of my followers to form neighborhood watch groups to keep tabs on your local mosques and Islamic centers in a peaceful manner. I think these places need to be surveilled by citizens 24/7, since our government won't do it. It's not a crime to have citizen watch groups that report suspicious behavior to police and FBI. You should start researching and studying up on Islamic centers in your community. You see where this is going? And reporting all suspicious activity that originates from these Islamic centers. Many of these places have live streams of their services where you can see what is being said. Yeah, Allah Akbar. God is great. I say that a lot. Oftentimes, the imams preach violence, and yet they face no accountability. I have been to enough mosque services to know that you are full of absolute, utter shit. Now, are you referring to somebody like Louis Farrakhan as the head of the Muslim Brotherhood? Well, that's a different story. But again, it only takes one. It takes one outlier for her to say that this is how everybody is. Start watching and saving all of those clips. Oh, believe me, you'll get a few psychopaths that'll do that for you. When Islamic communities take over the House and Senate and they abolish the police and abolish ICE and DHS, we won't have anyone to help us. These policies are largely being pushed by Islamic communist candidates in preparation for the war they plan to declare on non-Muslim Americans. If you don't prepare for this, you and your children will probably be slaughtered by these jihadists. Crazy, right? I think about this every single day, and I just want that to be known because my entire career, people have called me crazy for saying things like this. That's because you are. You're certifiably insane. But I want this to be on the record so that when it does happen, people realize I was trying to warn the public to save Americans from what our bleak future holds. We are going to be attacked by Islamic militants, and nobody will come to save us. It is up to Americans to prepare. Now, I'm not convinced that Looney Loomer is the person who's going to go out there and do the task. She is hoping, against all hope, that somebody else will go out there and do the dirty work for her. That's what she's counting on. That's what so many of these insane, ranting individuals are hoping for, that a crazy person in the audience is the one who's going to take up arms and is going to go out there and do the task. That's what they're hoping for. And if you think I'm wrong, if you think I am exaggerating what Loomer is actually talking about here. One of these days, Hasan Piker is going to talk shit to the wrong person. And then I'm going to make that person a give, send, go. Now, what she's actually saying here, in case you're wondering what this reference is, she's basically insinuating that if for whatever reason somebody decides to, take out Hasan Piker, that she's going to be right there to back up that person and make sure that they're okay. Get them out of jail, bond, etc. But this is a person who's absolutely out of her mind. And these are legitimate threats. I don't think anybody should be taking this lightly. The language she's using is extremely volatile and dangerous, and it is going to get people hurt. If not, it's going to get people killed. And she doesn't care. Do you know why she doesn't care, ladies and gentlemen? Because she, like so many other Zionist bastards walking this earth, but she in particular being a real scum sucker of the highest order, she has immunity. She can't be touched. That's why she does it. She knows who's protecting her. She knows that nothing can possibly happen to her. And as a result, she's going to continue to talk like this. Unless somebody stops her. Now, I'm not saying how anybody should go about doing that, but I want people to also understand something here. And I see from the chat, this is a very, very, very good point by Al-Askafla. The reason why she specifically targets Hasan Piker, which I have mentioned to you guys more often than not, I'm not a fan of his. I'm just not. I think that there's a lot of things about Hasan Piker that I really think people should consider when they say that they like him or that they appreciate his verbiage. I don't. I appreciate what he does to help get non-corporate progressive candidates elected into office when he moves some chess pieces on the board and gets people out to the polls to help him out. I mean, that's great. I appreciate his efforts in that regard. But his language is extremely dangerous when he talks about celebrating the Soviet Union under Stalin and Red China under Mao Zedong. This isn't anything to celebrate. This isn't anything to just casually sweep aside. The amount of killing that these two nations did together, the Nazis accomplished a fraction of that. There is such thing as there being no good guys in this mix. And that's what happens when you get to two extreme ends of the spectrum when it comes to your political ideology. And this is what real extremism looks like. And again, I'm not talking about the critiques that people have regarding whether or not Hasan is a team player for the Democratic Party. He most certainly is. But spewing the type of rhetoric that he spews regarding Stalin and Zedong, whether he believes it or not, he's only feeding into the fiasco that comes with giving cannon fodder to people like Laura Loomer. What is the purpose of that if not to serve your own ego and to make more money? It isn't going to attract more people to your cause. In fact, it's going to turn them off. It's going to turn people off to the extent that they're going to go to the other side. And you don't want that. There is such thing as being politically nuanced. And I would like to think that there are at least a handful of people out there that are nuanced enough to realize that when we talk about these content creators, remember, the end goal for almost every single one of them, whether it's Laura Loomer or Hasan Piker, is to get paid. That's the top priority. And if this is how they want to go about doing it, again, I'm not looking at that example as a reason why. Remember, there is a limit to what you can appreciate about what some of these people are doing and what they're not doing. However, do not think for 1 second that Loomer is not threatening Piker. She most certainly is. And again, the reason she's doing it is because who's going to stop her? And don't think for a second that this falls under party lines, because we are going to conclude this particular conversation here with something from State Senator Moss, who many of you know won his congressional primary for the general election on the Democratic side in Michigan. Here's what he had to say about the state of Israel.
I don't think it's wrong to use American point with Israel. It's not our homeland. We have been victims of anti-Semitism here.
You have an actual state senator who is now the Democratic congressional nominee in Michigan for the fall, saying, and I quote, "America is not as important as Israel." He actually said it. Now, do I suspect that he said this off the cuff to somebody that he didn't think was recording him? Yes. I don't think that this was in any way intended to go public, but it did. You think he's the only one who thinks like this and talks like this? He's one of several. This is a mainstay. This isn't anything close to an anomaly. It's just not. This just happened to leak. I'm with you, Henry. I'm with you. I hear you, pal. I hear you loud and clear. And this is exactly why, if he ends up winning, there are just as much as we can get a decent amount of people in there. There's also a lot that we have to worry about that are going to continue to cause this problem. There is something to be said for recognizing how much more dangerous it can get on the Democratic side than the Republican side. Like I said, it's the sheep versus the wolf. Always. It is always the sheep versus the wolf. With the Republicans, you always see it coming. With the Democrats, they're a little bit more sleight of hand. I am willing to bet. I'm willing to bet that Senator Moss never uttered anything close to that while he was campaigning. But now you know where he's really at. And now you understand the depths of how far this rabbit hole actually goes. It goes pretty far. Now, with that being said, I haven't had the opportunity to go after somebody who I think is emblematic of this problem, because we've seen it. We've seen it for years. And I'm getting a little bit hopeful, just slightly hopeful, that as much as we've seen people constantly talk about how they are preparing to leave the United States, and, you know, we do have a handful of individuals who, when they say, yeah, I'm going to move away, I'm not going to be here anymore, you know, do they actually mean it? And I got to tell you, I am hopeful that some of them will actually keep their word, that some of them might actually do what they say they're going to do. I am not holding my breath because, as we know, very often they just say it and then they don't do anything about it. And I have an image for you, Ben. I just sent it over. I'd like you to pull it up. I think the Laura Loomer equivalent on the Democratic side, in terms of just an all-out insane Zionist lunatic, privileged lunatic, is Debra Messing. And she decided to go to, I guess, the papers or something this week and offer some type of a promise. Well, here it is. American actress who loves Israel first and foremost says she's considering moving to Israel because she feels unsafe in the United States. Isn't that too bad? Well, I bring this up because, to her credit, Debra Messing actually listed her apartment in New York City for sale. Maybe she actually is serious. The apartment's $6.5 million, mind you. But hey, she's apparently serious about getting out of here. And if she is going to leave, it couldn't happen to a better person. This is the type of, and again, this is where they say it's a liberal Zionism, but there really isn't a distinction. It's a distinction without a difference. They want to call themselves that and think that it is acceptable discourse. I'm not going to show her apartment. I'm not going to be the one to basically be told, oh, you shared her address and then she got hurt, blah, 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 blah. Anne's right. She can get the step in as fast as humanly possible. But again, to her credit, she actually listed her apartment. Maybe she really is serious about leaving. And that, in many ways, would be wonderful. Now, I want to remind you all of who Debra Messing really is, of who this lunatic is, especially when it comes to somebody like Zohran Mamdani and how she masks it with all of the liberalism bullshit that she involves herself in on a regular basis.
For the community.
It's Debra Messing, you gays!
What are your thoughts about the election and about Zohran Mamdani?
I voted for Cuomo because he has decades of experience.
Now, I want to remind you all that Debra Messing is one of those people who was always front and center about believe all women, because they wouldn't lie, that there has to be justice for those that have been abused. And all that goes out the window the second that Israel is called into question. Then everything's off the table. Then the Zionist supremacist ideology shows its entire face. Could have voted for anybody else. Could have said, I'm not sharing who I'm voting for, but I'm certainly not voting for Mamdani, even though she would be coming at it from a very privileged perspective in terms of how she would be making that determination. However, the fact that she so gleefully admits that she supports somebody like Cuomo, we have been saying forever and a day, and we will continue to say forever and a day, that this is a class war, nothing more. These are all used as crutches, but again, it is protection of position, privilege, and wealth, and Messing has a lot of it. So after all those things that she claims to care about, the downtrodden, again, she always likes to talk about how she's a proud Democrat, a proud liberal, supporter of those in need. No, she's not. It's just a way to continue to allow her to be able to work. Do you know that she's playing Lucille Ball on stage in New York City right now? Some people still want to see her, apparently. And some people thought that that was a good idea. I'm not sure who thought that was a good idea. I actually think it was a rather stupid idea. But hey, what do I know? She got a little bit more to say.
And, it doesn't feel safe in New York right now. I understand the passions behind Mamdani. He's young, enthusiastic, but he has never had a job. He's 33 years old. And New York City is the financial center of our country. And I don't think he has the experience for the job.
Okay, so it went from I don't feel safe, he's inexperienced, he's never had a job. You gotta love it when people really like to go after public servants by saying that they've never had a job. You do realize that this guy worked in Albany, right? It's not like he came out of nowhere. He was an actual legislator, and he was a highly regarded legislator. In terms of the best legislators that actually got shit done in Albany, he was one of them. That's why friend of the show, State Senator Gustavo Rivera, he was one of his first endorsers, and he covers the Bronx. This is a woman of exceptional privilege. Exceptional privilege. And yet, in true Zionist fashion, she's the victim. Everybody else is making her feel uncomfortable. And as we have said time and again, you do not have the right to feel safe. Feeling safe is a privilege. And if you can't feel safe in that $6.5 million Upper West Side Central Park apartment, fuck off all the way to hell, honestly. It is not a surprise that we are getting to the point where people are sharpening their knives and polishing their guns. They're doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on this broken economic and political system. We wish that there were people that had control of the levers of power that recognizes that this system can't sustain itself. It's not possible. It's going to break. So what do? Do we just continue to allow her to get away with this nonsense? Well, I can assure you that if you thought that was bad, this is even worse. This was very recent.
Jewish. My parents were Orthodox in Brooklyn, big Zionists. They went to Israel all the time, every single night.
Try this one more time because it's glitching. Hopefully this will help.
Get to the back of the line, kike. We were not liked. My grandfather came to visit and there was a swastika on his car. I learned to not talk about being Jewish. My parents grew up Orthodox in Brooklyn, big Zionists. They went to Israel all the time.
When you brag about going to Israel all the time, do you know what you're doing? You're showing your entire ass about how privileged you are. Do you think it's cheap to fly across the Atlantic Ocean, to fly almost halfway across the globe, by the way, to get all the way to West Asia? You think that's cheap? And they used to go all the time. All the time we went over there. Again, you're showing your entire ass. An ass that I really don't want to see. But some people do, unfortunately.
Every single night, my parents were working on something having to do with supporting Jewry. My father got a job. We moved to Rhode Island. There were 3 of us.
Ben, this is coming in way too choppy. I don't know what the issue is with this, but I'll pull it up one more time. Hopefully it'll come through a little cleaner.
At a very young age, that I was different. People didn't like me. I just instinctively shrunk because I always felt the sense of danger.
Can you remember sort of what gave that sense?
The first thing that happened was in 2nd grade. We were lining up to go to gym class, and this little boy turned to me and said, "Get to the back of the line." And I
got to tell you, I find this very hard to believe. I just do. That she was in 2nd grade and that some random kid came up to her and said, "Get to the back of the line, kike." First of all, her name is not distinctively Jewish. Debra Messing, that doesn't stand out. It's not Deborah Heinowitz. It's not Deborah Goldman. It's just not. So I do find, especially in 2nd grade, what, 6, 7-year-old kids? I don't know. She is an actress. Do you know what actors are? Professional liars. That's what they are. They're pretending to be something they're not. That is what it is.
I didn't know what the word was. My parents had to sit me down and say, "People don't like us. There is no reason. It's just a fact. But we are proud Jews."
Where did you find any sense of Jewish community?
It wasn't until college. It wasn't until then that I realized I've never felt safe in my entire life until now.
I didn't feel safe in my entire life until now. Really? This again is when we get back to it being a class war. This is the big problem. And guys, we have over 500 watching. Let's make sure, please like and share the stream. Let's try to get this out there to as many people as we can. Really appreciate it. Got a lot more to do tonight, a lot more fun coming. But this, to me, really speaks to the true disconnect when it comes to our political and economic system. Debra Messing, say what you want. She's in the 1%, and she always has been. So when they talk about, "I don't feel safe," what they're really doing is just showing that They don't care how many people have to suffer for their own mental stability, of which they don't have much, if any at all. They have proven time and again that this is something where they are willing to wipe out civilizations for their own mental sanity, of which they have little to none at all. So that's where the bigger problem shows its face for all it's worth. And it's dangerous. It really is. And we know for a number of these individuals, they will go to incredible lengths. But thankfully, the tables are turning against them. We know that they are. So when Debra Messing decides that she has finally had enough, whether it is of New York City, or many of you may have seen the clip of her with Noah Tishby in Tel Aviv, and her crying about how she's home, good. And when everything falls apart, don't come crawling back here because you're not wanted. Like I said, the thing about Zionism and the reason why it survives, it's very simple. It survives because of their control over our economic and political system. But that control is starting to erode. They're not having the same success that they once did. They're just not. And I also want to remind people that we covered a viral story the other day. And I think some of you probably have already seen our clip that's been making the rounds today. I don't know why Rabbi Schmucky, Schmutzy, whatever you want to call him. Why is Rabbi Shmuley in Iceland? And I've been asking myself this question the entire day. What actually is it about Iceland? Why would he want to be there? Why would he and his son, and probably an entourage of certain people, why would they feel the need to go to Iceland? And I've seen people joke about they're so dumb that they thought that they were going to Greenland, and then that's where they were taking over the land. So they were just trying to go visit their latest conquest. But who's to say that they don't have theories of grandeur when it comes to conquering Iceland? Well, it turns out that Schmucky wasn't satisfied with going and harassing a woman who was the girlfriend of a guy who trolled him, insulted him, got him off his phone for a second and said, hey, I just wanted to tell you something, fuck Israel. And he had an entire conniption about it, started recording him, had a complete meltdown about it. They're over in Iceland for a reason. They're not there for vacation. What I think they're there for, which I think is kind of interconnected to a lot of the stories that we've been covering as of late, in terms of a number of the people that are connected directly to Israel. That's number one. Whether they're actually living there or they're part of the Zionist cause, the Zionist entity. Places in Cyprus, places in Argentina, places in Southeast Asia, that small community in northern Italy. And now they're going to Iceland because this is a almost universally white country. So you would think that they would feel accepted there. At least that's what my thinking is in terms of why they went there in the first place. I don't want to presume anything because I'm not going to. But I will say this. If Schmucky is there, if Rabbi Schmutzy has decided that they're going on some type of a tour of Iceland, what I think they're really doing is trying to find a community that they can take over. That's what they're doing. They're looking for, again, they're looking for blood in the water. That's what they want. They are going through these communities. They are seeing what they can get their hands on. And is it even all possible that they could take over a community? That's what they're looking for. Is this what's going to happen here? Well, apparently the word got around to the locals about Schmuckwad showing up in their backyard. And they didn't like it. And apparently he got into it, or somebody got into it with him at a local pub in Iceland.
He attacked me 3 times. He attacked me 3 times. This man is assaulting me. This man is assaulting me. This man is assaulting me. Call the police. Please call the police on him. He assaulted me. He must call the police, please. He attacked me 3 times. He attacked me 3 times. He attacked me 3 times. Please call the police. Fuck Israel. Fuck Israel.
Yes. You heard them right. They said, fuck Israel, get the fuck out of there. And if you're not careful, they're going to tear your fucking hook nose off and shove it up your ass. You're lucky. You're in a country of peaceful people that have health care, that have education, that have paid family leave, that have paternity leave. They have a lot of things that make life worth living. It's kind of comfortable. It's kind of cold, but they enjoy life up there. And they do not take kindly to infiltrators like you showing up in their country. They don't want you there. And what's going to end up happening is the Icelandic people are going to rebel against their own government if they do not put up a wall, proverbially, against Zionist Jews coming to their country. Like, we don't want you here. And that's what's going to happen. Schmuckwad is not doing them any favors by doing this. If they had any intention of thinking they were going to get into this little country, because it's actually a great country by most economic and political standards around the world, well, you could kiss that goodbye. So you can thank Schmuckwad for doing an incredibly important task for all of us. For so many of us who are so sick of listening to these stories about these bastards showing up in countries that they don't belong in, all because they have money and they have power and they think, oh yeah, we're totally coming in here and this is our country now. Well, that's not happening here. They're telling him, get the fuck out of here before you really get into trouble. But you see, he wants that trouble. I don't know what it is in his brain that makes him think that this is a good thing, that this is going to end up helping him and his cause in any way. It's actually not. I don't know how he got out of there, but there's more to
it. He assaulted me. We're going to take him out too. Don't worry. We're going to call the police on everybody. Can you please...
Nobody feels safe at this place.
Just relax, relax.
He cannot assault me as an American citizen.
Nobody can assault.
He assaulted me.
Nobody can assault.
He attacked me.
Nobody assaulted you.
You're not welcome.
Bingo! He looked right at him and said, you're not welcome. And what the hell is this with Schmuckwad announcing the fact that he is an American citizen? What does that matter in Iceland? It doesn't mean anything. If anything, that's a red flag. You're in our country and you're causing trouble. We don't see anybody else here causing trouble. Why are you here? What exactly are you hoping to accomplish by being here in our country? You are not welcome in Iceland, Schmuckwad. What's he going to do? Tell his Zionist Jewish cohorts, don't go to Iceland? Let me tell you something. That's what they're hoping you do. They don't want you there. There's more. We're going to get more to this in the evening because it's not the only story. But this is a prime example of you're going to box yourself out of every place. You will not be welcomed. Yeah. You wanted to have a crystal knock type situation happen again? They're asking for it. Their actions always speak louder than words. And this gets to what has been a recurring theme this week. We saw what happened with Ariana Hamilton, the former employee of Burger King. We saw what happened to her. It turns out that shitbag started in with her in the first place. We saw what happened the other night with Schmuckwad getting into the girlfriend's face, who didn't want to be recorded, didn't want anything to do with him, and he kept he was stalking her. He was stalking her pathway. I'm surprised that guy didn't take his fucking head off. Now, if he touched her, he probably would have. And in this case, he's in a bar, people recognized him, and they don't want him there. They tell them, get the fuck out of here. We don't want your kind here. And you could say, you see what they're doing to the Jews? Well, this is what happens when you equate one and the same. When you say that there is no difference between Judaism and Zionism, this is what you get. You get this. And it's going to keep getting worse. And I don't have any sympathy whatsoever because nobody is speaking up about this the way that they should. They should be telling him, there should be a universal condemnation on social media in the United States saying, Rabbi Shmuckwad, you are not welcome here anymore. All you do is cause trouble wherever you go. But again, our government has been infiltrated and superseded to the will of the Zionist cause. Much like Looney Loomer was acting the way she did and with complete impunity is asking for somebody to assassinate Hasan Piker and she'll pick up the pieces for him if that ends up happening. Well, the same is true with somebody like Shmuckwad going over to Iceland. I'm untouchable. I can do whatever I want, and no one's going to do anything about it. That's what he's counting on. Only it seems like the people there are telling him, if you're not careful, you're going back in a body bag.
I'm not welcome where? Here where? Are you on the bar?
Relax, relax.
I can't believe this is allowed.
Now watch that woman if you can. I don't know if we can capture it. I think it happens quick. Let's see if we can get it. He's got it right on her. Yeah, I can't get it. There it is. Okay. Now I know it's blurred a little bit, and I remember from seeing it earlier, but she's giving him the double bird. He was walking around trying to leave that bar, kind of like looking around thinking, is anybody going to come to my defense? Did you see what they did to me? No, no one's coming to your defense. And hopefully, no one is ever coming to your defense ever again. Frankly, I don't really know anybody who would actually come to Shmuckwad's defense. That would be surprising to me, as it would probably be surprising to just about anybody else. What was he expecting? Did he think he had friends in there? Is that what he thought? That's what they're always thinking. And I'm not entirely convinced that in the States that they think like this. Maybe they do. I don't know. I mean, anything's possible. Anything is possible. But I am under no illusions at all. None. And neither should anybody else. That this isn't going to get perpetually worse for a lot of these people, and it should. We want there to be a sea shift. We're desperately looking for it. And it's very difficult to see any of this happening. I wish it weren't that case. I wish more people would step up. I wish more people would act like the Icelanders do. They made it very clear. But unfortunately, as I've said before, this is our country. This is the cross we have to bear. This type of behavior, unfortunately, is tolerated in the States in a way that it isn't in other places. That's why they're able to get away with it. But I often wonder, for how much longer? For how much longer are we willing to put up with it here in the United States? Are we willing to put up with these antics? Maybe the great lesson here is that in the end, they will do it to themselves. Did Shmuckwad think this was going to help him after what he did the other day? It probably made the rounds all over the country what he was doing. And now anytime anybody sees him, they're like, oh, I want a piece of that motherfucker. That's the way it should be. They shouldn't have a moment's peace. They should never feel safe. They should know hell on earth until the day they die. The support for the genocide is only one component to this death rattle of an ideology. So it is incumbent upon us to do our part to make sure that that is facilitated. And if you think that that is one example of a person getting their ego stroked, or getting an ego shattered, I should say, and be clear about that. I think some of you may have seen that while this didn't happen in the States, this happened in Thailand. I'm pretty sure that's where it happened. I want you to understand that the Icelanders are doing a great job. But then again, there was a confrontation between an American and a Zio scum at the international airport in Bangkok. I'm pretty sure that's where this happened. Here we go. Once again, we're going to start again because, like I said, unfortunately, I don't know what system is being used, but it's not coming in clearly in terms of the imagery. But I want you to look a little close at this. This is kind of embarrassing. Right, we're going to start it again. Let's see what happens. Cross your fingers and your toes if you can. We need clear imagery.
That's why now you go to jail. Now you go to jail.
Now, if you're wondering what this is a fist fight at the airport between an Israeli and an American. But I got to say, this is one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. Now, we all know that Israelis are weird and inbred in many respects, but I don't know what in the hell is going on with this guy's hair. Whatever this is, whoever told him that this was a great hairstyle, I mean, I've seen bald patches before, or, you know, whatever some people who just can't let go of their hair. I don't know what is going on there, but that is definitely one of the most bizarre lack of hairstyles I've ever seen. I don't know how anybody didn't convince him to just shave it all off, or did the barber just forget to finish the job? Is that what happened? Because that's what it looks like. It looks like he just forgot to finish the job. So this should come as really no surprise. No one would be accusing them of doing anything other than looking completely inbred, and this would definitely be a case of that. I thought for a second, is that some weird type of headphones he's got on? No, that's his hair. Well, if he wanted to stick out like a sore thumb, he definitely accomplished that.
Oh, that's why now you go to jail. Now you go to jail. You prove our point. You prove our point. You go to jail. This guy has called Jews. No. Attack me. You attacked me. You fucking attacked me. You piece of shit. You attacked me.
Now, oof, man, that is tough to look at. There are various reports about what was said, what it led to, how it got to this point. Here's what I know for absolute certainty. Something was said regarding him being an Israeli and an IOF soldier, and he was called a baby killer. That's been confirmed by a lot of people that were there. He said, yeah, he called him a baby killer. And he lost his mind over that. Okay. The Zionist side is claiming that he said that Hitler should have finished the job. That's what he's saying. And you know what? If that is what was said, you have allowed it to fester to a point in which people are starting to talk like this. This is why this genocidal ideology has to die. It has to die, and it has to die as soon as humanly possible, because people who are Jewish are not going to be safe. Not going to be safe. Because they will not let go of this. Israel has to die. And anyone who's standing in the way of it ultimately finishing, spiraling to its inevitable demise forever, this is a huge part of the problem. That disconnect is a real part of the problem. I don't care how it started. I care that there are people who are now basically picking off all the Zionists that they see wherever they see them. And they tell them, you're not welcome here. Go crawl to a fucking hole somewhere and live there for the rest of your existence. And I applaud that. Because that's more than a lot of people that are willing to do at this point. And we should be thankful that that's what happened. They walk around like there's nothing wrong. They walk around like they didn't do anything. Like I said, it's the forever victim mindset. For how much longer it lasts, I don't know. But more of these stories are going to appear, and they won't know what to do when it's all said and done. They are going to be shunned all over the country, all over the world. And I will say this, for talking economics, what's eventually going to happen, and where so much of the real change is going to come from, it's going to come when the United States, when the US dollar is no longer the world's hegemonic currency that people use. When BRICS becomes bigger, so much of their ability to stave off the inevitable has to do with our State Department and our protecting their interests, if you will. Our responsibility is to make sure, as much as it would hurt us as Americans in the short term, in the long term, we have to rip off this Band-Aid and never look back. So here's hoping we do. If you're enjoying this conversation so far, which we hope you are, please consider going over to patreon.com/revolutionary change for as little as $5 a month. You can become a supporter of our small but mighty, despite heavily suppressed yet still growing channel. We do want to give a big shout out to our current contributors, because we've had quite a few, and we obviously have a handful of more stories to get to, but we want to give a big shout out to Pirate Justin with the $2. Purple Hair is back. Shabbat Shalom. Daddy's home. Thank you very much for noticing. Jim Talib with the $5. Always great to see you here, pal. We really appreciate it. Citizen Pendejo with the 20 pesos. Diamond should have banned from running a lemonade stand. Are you talking about Jamie Dimon? I don't know who you're referring to. I think that's who you're referring to, so I'm taking a shot in the dark here. But yes, that would be my guess. Kenman with the $6.99 Canadian A. We have to accept that revolution will take decades to organize and accomplish. I don't think it's going to take that long, to be honest. Not anymore. It's been kind of lingering for a while. Organizing it is another story, and what that's going to look like in totality, I don't know yet. But my guess is going to be very interesting when it ultimately comes to pass. Alaska Flood with the $9.99. Could nuclear blackmail in the U.S. be the ultimate leverage Israel has on every politician? Well, look, the Samson option has been discussed many times before. They have often said that if their country is backed into a corner, that they will inevitably drop a nuclear weapon, and I do believe that they're serious. I don't think for a second that they wouldn't do something of that magnitude. I think it's very realistic that they would. Libertarian Social Dem with the $4.99. Andy Oggle's loss gives me hope for Aaron Baker will defeat Randy Swine. Inshallah, God willing, but I stopped endorsing Fishback because he's a racist snake. Don't get your hopes up on Aaron Baker. I'm just letting you know now. But unfortunately, Randy Swine is probably going to be there for a little while longer. Pirate Justin with the $2. The entire world is the promised land. Yeah. In what world, I wonder? Libertarian Social Dem with the $1.99. Nancy Mace from a moderate to an anti-Muslim loon. Nancy Mace is trying to get paid. That's all she cares about. Period. Judith Ann Campbell with the $10. Rabbi Shmuley spends way too much time in New York City and Israel. Who does he think he is? Thinking that he can just arrive in somebody else's country and start issuing demands and giving orders? Unreal. Hey, like I said, when you think you're chosen and protected, it's amazing what the ego is capable of doing. Princess Callie with the $20. Thank you for your very generous contribution. Alex Godmittens with the $2. Fantastic show, Podcast Peter. Thank you, brother. I really appreciate it. And Libertarian Social Dem with the $4.99. What do you think we will get Massey Tucker MTG Republicans elected over the Zio racist MAGA types? Because I can't take MAGA spreading hate. A lot of it comes down to money and power. I think depending on what Tucker is planning to do. Now the talks are that Tucker's the one who's going to run for office. I don't know. I honestly don't know. It's still too early to tell. They haven't shown their cards yet, so we don't know what they're planning. But with that being said, do I think it's a welcome change that we desperately need? 100%. No two ways about it. And I am appreciative of what they're trying to do. Guys, remember, we're also on substack.com/@revolutionary change. We're also live on X. We are live on Instagram. We are live on, I don't think we're live on TikTok, but we're on TikTok. And we're also live on Rumble. If you could, please make sure that you are subscribed on YouTube. That is the most important place where we get the most traffic and hence the most revenue. And I always say, let those ads play if you can. It is very important that you let the ads play. If you do, it helps us generate revenue for the channel that we otherwise can't get otherwise. And with that being said, let's get back to the regularly scheduled programming. I would imagine that a number of you are aware of Andrew Wilson and the Whatever podcast that he runs out of Miami. I have never taken the time to really focus on anything that this guy does because, frankly, I don't think it's important. I think most of it is a waste of time. I think there is way too much emphasis put on trying to go after people that have a lot of issues going on in their life. That when you're trying to facilitate a narrative, you end up creating an environment that is very toxic. First of all, it's very anti-woman. If anybody here is familiar with the Whatever podcast, this guy, Andrew Wilson, I mean, I knew he was a douche canoe. I just didn't know to what extent until he started going after Candace Owens on the Joe Rogan podcast. And that's where a lot of this started. So here we go.
Evidence not to. So for instance, the guy was still very much of a pro-Israel guy, even up to death. It is true that he was fighting with donors about the cause. And this
but if he could have been a substantial roadblock to the Iraq war, or Iran war rather, if he was a substantial roadblock.
Starting from the beginning, but let's start it from the very beginning.
There's any possibility that someone else killed him? Do you think there's any possibility that he was assassinated by Israel?
I've never, well, when we're talking about possibility, almost anything's possible.
Almost anything's possible.
But there's not good evidence to support it, and there's probably pretty good evidence not to. So,
okay. So, right off the bat, he is playing into the narrative of it's Tyler Robinson, there's not good evidence. Again, we have plenty of evidence that shows that whatever went down on September 10th, 2025, we have only been given a small portion of the story. And a lot of what we saw was amateur video that captured what happened. You mean to tell me that George Zinn acting up the way that he didn't play a role in what actually went down that day? You mean to tell me that the paving over of the crime scene that weekend wasn't some type of a cover-up? You mean to tell me that all of those meetings that took place, particularly the big one in the Hamptons, wasn't a forewarning, or should I say a foreshadowing of what was going to happen if Charlie got out of line? I think we can easily see now exactly why this is such a serious issue. And yet, this guy who speaks with a cadence that is actually like nails on a chalkboard level of disingenuine inflection. He sounds like a used car salesman, among other things. And to even suggest that there's absolutely no evidence that Israel is involved, the right answer is, I'm not sure if Israel's involved, but I can't rule it out. That's actually the politically correct answer to give. Now, I 1000% believe Israel was involved. Don't get me wrong. But I'm playing devil's advocate here. The only reason why he would say this, the only reason, is because he's being paid to say it. Period.
So, for instance, the guy was still very much of a pro-Israel guy, even up to death. It is true that he was fighting with donors about the cause. And this
but if he could have been a substantial roadblock to the Iraq war, or Iran war rather, if he was a substantial roadblock, I mean, that's not outside the realm of possibility that a nation state would take a guy like that out.
They didn't take out Fuentes. They didn't take out Owens. They didn't take out Ian Carroll. They didn't take out...
See, once again, I hate having to teach a moron new tricks, but I'm not teaching him anything. I'm just informing the audience here. Charlie Kirk, as much as anybody, is responsible for Donald Trump winning the presidential election in 24. The way that his organization, under his guidance, was able to move young voters, the GOTV efforts that TPUSA was able to do on behalf of Trump, especially in swing states, not just Arizona, not just Nevada. They made probably their biggest impact in those two states, and Trump flipped those two states from 20 to 24. I mean, in some ways, that was as big of an impact on the election alone, but we're only talking in an area where they're very strong in terms of boots on the ground. And you think about the other things that they were able to do throughout the entire country. Charlie Kirk is comparable to anybody else? No, he's not. He was in a league all by himself. Nobody's close. And for a while, things were good. And as Candace Owens has pointed out time and again, which cannot be denied, there is no question that his impact is as seismic as anything we have seen post-Obama's run in 2008. Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA was a response, a direct response to what Obama accomplished in 2008. They had to find the conservative movement in the United States. They knew that if they didn't figure out a way to mobilize youth, they would potentially be in a position, especially if Obama got some of the policies that he should have gotten done, that the Democrats could have been in a position to dominate like they did in the FDR days for about 2 decades. That's very possible. But of course, it didn't happen. And the rise of Turning Point USA, which was much more of a libertarian organization. Again, I've been following this from basically the beginning. I saw how it changed over time. But there's no question that Charlie Kirk was an exceptionally talented politico who was able to mobilize millions of people and had as much of an impact on the 2024 election as anyone could have ever had. So to even for Andrew to suggest, to play dumb, like Charlie Kirk isn't that big of a deal, again, He's lying. And what's even more insane is that apparently he is either working for Turning Point USA or is being compensated by Turning Point USA. They make it so damn obvious that this is one massive cover-up. But to what end is the question? Maybe that's what it is. I think that's what it is. And I have more evidence to suggest that that is what it is and evidence that doesn't. We'll continue.
About any of these other huge personalities who were roadblocks to the way?
I think Charlie was very different. Carol, or excuse me, Fuentes is more easy to dismiss because he said so many wild things, shit posting. He said so many crazy things that I think he is almost embodying in their eyes like the crazy anti-Semite. Whereas Charlie was not an anti-Semite, was much more reasonable, and if he was going against Israel, it could be a real problem.
It is all about money and power. And when you lose somebody at the level of a Charlie Kirk, it's all over. Now, I think they were heading in a direction where they were going to lose it. But once Charlie Kirk stood in the way of the Iran war, that was the end. They said, we'll pick up the pieces afterwards and let the chips fall where they're going to fall. They were willing to put up with a lot. But one of the conditions that Miriam Adelson placed on Donald Trump with that $100 million to ensure that he won re-election, we're going to war in Iran. Now, they may not have said it in those exact terms, and Lord knows he probably didn't want to go in that direction. But Trump understood the score as soon as he got in there. But then again, so did Charlie. And Charlie was willing to stand on the train tracks to stop it. And initially, he did. You think if Charlie was still alive, that he wouldn't be mobilizing millions of people against that war right now? I bet you he would be.
I also think that he had a tremendous amount of influence on the president. He had his ear. You know, I think the president respected him.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The interesting part, though, if you look at the history there, Fuentes conducted his Graper War against TPUSA and Charlie Kirk because of the pro-Israel stance and because of his pro-homosexual stance, his like big tent Republicanism, he called it. Yeah. So they had the pro stances for these things. And what's interesting about all of it, if you follow the details of it up until Kirk's death, TPUSA actually moved a lot more towards the Groyper-Fuentes position than they moved towards the kind of pro-Israel, this type of position, meaning a lot of the ideology that I think Kirk was changing on came from these various outside influences. And so if that's the case, why wouldn't you just curtail those outside influences and then you can keep Kirk as the mouthpiece, right?
Can I just say, I understand that people smoke cigarettes. It's a nasty habit. But this particular guy comes off as such a trash bag, smoking that cigarette in front of Rogan. If you were smoking a cigar, heck, if you were smoking a joint, I would have a lot more respect, and I could understand that. There was something really trashy about this guy holding that cig. It just, again, I'm not trying to judge somebody on appearances, but he may make a lot of money. Oh, I don't know if you're calling me a twat or if you're just saying that he's a chain smoker twat. Whichever one it is, thank you for letting me know. Chain smoking is a really bad thing, and it really isn't good for your health.
So I think that there's a pretty good counter to that idea. Now, you can't rule anything out as possibility, but it seems likely to me with how much trans have been shooting everything up for the last couple of years and how often it's the case that you find leftists involved in these signal groups and involved in these group chats and things like this for the purpose of radicalization. Wouldn't surprise me a bit if there was a left-wing conspiracy assisting Tyler Robinson.
This guy wants you to believe that there is an epidemic of trans shooters in this country. There was that one particular case that was pretty effed up, the one that happened in Texas at the school where the police wouldn't go in and help those innocent children. Isn't that what you're paid to do? That's just my thought. You know, I could be wrong. Be it as it may. Keep pushing, brother. Keep pushing. And that's a big one. That's even bigger, believe it or not. I know I'm preaching to the choir here. I don't drink, I don't smoke. I've actually never smoked. I know that it's hard to never try that stuff, but you know. He has to be getting paid. He has to. There's no other logical explanation for this commentary other than, yeah. And I'm willing to take it at face value that there have been a handful of trans shooters. I'm not saying there isn't. But shooting it's a problem. But not the way that he's describing it. And again, this wasn't a random shooting. This was an assassination. And it wasn't an assassination that was done by some rando who may have been MK Ultra. I don't think anybody is really buying into that. And so as it turns out, Andrew and his partner, Atlas, Tom Atlas, whatever his name is, they're trying to goad her into doing a debate on this topic, on Charlie Kirk. And so Candace responded to their inquiries.
We'll give you $300,000.
What is her position? What does she think happened?
She thinks that Israel worked in conjunction with TPUSA and Erica Kirk to murder Charlie.
You know, they often say that the most logical explanation or the most reasonable explanation is the one that all the directions point to. Now, again, I'm not here to say that this assassination is a direct result of something that Andrew Colvett, Mikey Brown, or Mikey McCoy, excuse me, Erica Kirk, Blake Neff. I'm not saying that they're the ones that pulled the trigger. I'm not even saying that they're the ones that were involved in the entire setup of this assassination. But do I think it's very plausible, even reasonable, that they went along for the ride, knowing full well the fallout and the benefit financially, at least in the short term, that they were going to get from it? Yes, I do. We have covered Erica Kirk many times before. There is no question that there is some really shady shit going on with her background, and not just with her, but with her parents. Questions that still remain unanswered. Questions that I think a lot of people want to have answers to. Because as I said, from the moment I started covering this, all roads lead to Israel and their cause.
Based on what?
Well, that's the million-dollar question. Nobody actually knows. She's never presented a single shred of evidence thus far that Israel ever worked to murder Kirk, that Erica Kirk certainly didn't. In fact, her position for the longest time was, if Erica Kirk comes out and tells me to stop this, to stop the conspiracy on this, I will. So Erica did. She went out publicly and she was like, enough, enough. You're just causing more problems than good here as this investigation's going on. And then suddenly Erica's now part of the conspiracy. by the next day, she's trying to cover it up. She's part of the conspiracy too. When I went to the TPUSA HQ, and I talked to Erica briefly while I was there, the first thing I did was what I think every normal, moral human being would ever do. I gave her a hug. And I told her how god-awful sorry I was that happened to her.
Guys, correct me if I'm wrong, and I know we've got a pretty good sized crowd right now. We're over 625, been floating around 650. Got a really great crowd here tonight. Guys, if you haven't smashed that like button yet, please make sure you do. I want to address this. Sorry, gentlemen, but this is for the ladies in particular. For the ladies that are here tonight, does Andrew Wilson give off like a creeper vibe? Because I'm kind of getting that feeling. I'm getting the feeling he's kind of a weird dude. Like there's something there. I want to hear from the audience. What do you guys think?
Like, could you even imagine how that's got to feel for her? Especially now that she has tens of thousands of people accusing her of murdering and conspiring to murder and then cover up what happened to her own. I mean, that's like mind-boggling psychological torture on a level that I've never seen.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just throw all of that bullshit away. And it seems to me that much of the audience agrees that he is definitely a creeper. Not a surprise. There are many different levels, as I just pointed out, in terms of the way that you could be involved in an assassination, in a conspiracy to assassinate at this level. I am not convinced that Erica was not brought into Charlie's life deliberately when it happened. And for the purposes of whatever it is. You know, I think Charlie, like I said, I've said this before, I'll say it again. I think Charlie woke up one day and kind of realized he wasn't in control anymore. He probably always suspected that he wasn't. He always suspected that there was something there about the way that the organization was being run, that he thought he was the guy, but then he wasn't. And it started eating at him, and he didn't really know who to trust or who to talk to. It turns out that Candace was somebody that he could. She never said anything until it was over. No one knew anything about this. And this had been going on for months. Candace never said anything. Why would she? There is such thing as trust. There is also plausible deniability. You can't talk about these things for many legal purposes. You know, no, TPUSA is a private company. It wasn't publicly traded or anything like that. But there's a lot of legal ramifications for things that you can say to the detriment of, let's say, shareholders within the company that promote it, fund it, etc. When he realized that this didn't make any sense to him anymore, he wanted to either rid himself of it or figure out how to rectify the situation and bring it home once more, make it as it once was, but he couldn't. And so he basically said, I'm going to let the chips fall where they're going to fall. That's what he said. And if I get killed, I get killed. But just understand why this is happening. That's why Candace has been relentless about this, and as she should be.
Hindsight is 20/20, but given the reaction, I think it probably would have been better for her to like lay low for a little while.
1000%.
The going out with the sparklers was not a great idea. Like all that was not a great idea because it just seemed insane.
Thank you, Joe Rogan, for saying that. People were going, yeah, okay.
Charlie, I just think, honestly, you're too stupid to understand them.
So, Andrew, can I sell you on my worldview?
Yes.
Your wife has 3 baby daddies and has been married twice before.
And you,
under your religion.
You lick.
Now, this is a guy who tries to moralize on these women that he brings on the show. I saw somebody mention earlier the guys that would do the Fresh and Fit podcast. And essentially what they would do is they would bring on these women, primarily women that were on OnlyFans, and try to moralize on them, saying that they're sinners and that they're bad and that they, shouldn't be doing this, or they're basically trying to show how ditzy and even outright dumb that they are, or that they have a massive ego about their looks. That's real slop. That is useless, pointless, degrading content that Andrew Wilson does in spades. And so he brings this lady on who calls herself Charlie, and she addresses the fact that his wife, is it Andrea? I forget her name. Point is, his wife has been going after Candace, trying to egg her on about having this debate and moralizing on her own grounds. Again, I'm not here to judge somebody. She's got 3 baby daddies. She's been married twice and now a 3rd time to Andrew, and he gets upset about that. Basically, all she's doing is just telling you to look yourself in the mirror and say, why is it that you think you have the higher moral ground when you are involved in your own questionable lifestyle? Again, they always say the call is coming from inside the house. You always have to wonder what the motivation is for people like this to do this. Money, power, everything is always connected back to that. That's why we say, being that it's a class war, everything is always interconnected, and it always will be. There isn't, as I said, there's very rare circumstances where there's a silver bullet, where there's a different reason for why they're doing this, or why somebody like Andrew Wilson is all of a sudden the spokesperson for TPUSA and is trying to goad Candace Owens into a debate. There's no rhyme or reason for it. It's actually kind of stupid. But, hey, if it's working for him, I guess, if this is what he's getting paid to say, so be it. The question is Candace going to give in?
What is that?
You're a don't talk about my wife, you stupid. Shut your mouth. Shut your stupid mouth.
But that's him in a nutshell. Just kind of curses and smokes cigarettes and tries to denigrate people. I got to tell you, from the outside, it kind of looks like Turning Point USA scraping the bottom of the barrel looking for influencers. And they've now arrived at people who are just amoral, who will lie about what people have said and intentionally misrepresent their positions, and who I would say are not reminiscent of the honest debate strategy and style that was once employed by their company founder. I mean, Charlie Kirk's brand was clean and respectable.
I got a grip.
Not that I think that that's anything of real relevance, but when Candace talks about what was the organization, I don't think, being what it is, there are differences. There's no question that there are substantive differences between what I personally think were of some value that Turning Point USA once had, which was when it came to certain issues of libertarianism, being constitutional rights, the anti-war movement. Part of the reason why Charlie had always talked about who his favorite politician was on Capitol Hill was Thomas Massie. So I think underneath it all, Charlie was a Christian and he was a libertarian conservative. And even though we definitely have our differences, there is no question in my mind that there was common ground there. There was areas where we could get along and figure out how to coalesce on certain key issues. But the second you opened up that doorway for Zionism to walk through the door, that was the end. And as I said, I've been to a handful of TPUSA events. I was at a big one in Tampa, Florida, a handful of years ago. Those events are not cheap. Costs a lot of money. It's a recruiting ground for sure. It's a social hour for sure. But there's no question. It costs a lot of money. You think anybody's showing up there? No, definitely not. And that's where the corporate denigration of our system finds its way in. Again, I'm not here to defend Charlie, but I am here to get to the bottom of his assassination. That's the goal. Now, I did say that we were going to point out a couple of points here, and this is also something I want people to remember. Andrew Wilson is desperate. I don't know why or what he thinks he's going to get out of it, but Andrew Wilson is desperate to do a debate with Candace Owens. He wants to do it for $300,000, and now it's $500,000. I think they want to do it at their studio. I mean, I've always said, if I'm Candace, I am always very suspicious of when people want you to come to their territory. Always very suspicious. And I want people to remember that there is still people who want Candace Owens' head. They do. But I also want you to see, excuse me, kind of in a nutshell, exactly what this whatever podcast is, and more importantly, just how much of a douchey egomaniac Andrew Wilson actually is.
Require a mind?
Sure, Andrew.
Well, then it can't be objective.
Yes, it can, because objective things can be immaterial. You don't know what objective means.
There is a sub-definition too, not dependent on the mind for existence. Actual. I'll repeat hers though.
Will you stop
of a
deep the mic, Andrew? Stop doing this to your face.
You're coping so bad. You're so dumb.
Yeah,
you know, I can't believe you did this so bad. I just want to know if rights are objective and they don't depend on minds. Can you please tell me where I could find them? Just
it's
rights.
Immaterial. Do you understand that? It's a concept. Do you know what a concept is?
Do concepts require minds?
Sure, Andrew.
So then they're not objective.
But something can exist in your mind and still be objective.
Are we talking about something or are we talking about rights?
So do you not think that people have an objective right to life?
Listen.
You're arguing on a definition because you don't want to actually have to defend your opinion.
Why would I ever in a million years be required to defend rights if you can't even fucking tell me what they are?
This is a great example, a prime example of the type of nonsense that this channel puts out there on a regular basis. And evidently, a lot of people like to watch this guy's channel. I don't think they necessarily like to watch him per se, but a lot of people get caught up. This is in many ways, for those of you who are from the 80s and the 90s, this is the Jerry Springer effect. This is the Geraldo Rivera effect. This is the train wreck that people watch. That type of entertainment, much as I had the same opinion when the Kardashians came out, when Paris Hilton was a thing, rage watching is definitely part of it. And I do think a lot of times the escapism aspect is part of it. And I only showed you this one because I only looked at a few and I said, there was really no point to this. They were raging over the definition of language regarding what is an objective concept if it happens to be a thought and not an actual law. Is that what they were talking? Like I said, if the intent is to be a joke, you had it. And yes, Howard Stern is another good example of that. Heck, even Don Imus would be a good example of that. And that's where we're at. This is Golden, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. It's Ricky Lake, not Nikki Lake. But yes, point still stands, and I agree with you. It's called trash TV, slop TV, whatever you want to call it. And it's transitioned from what was once on afternoon television or mid-morning television. You know, if you were ever homesick from school and wondered what people were doing during the day if they weren't out working, they were watching this shit. And now, because the internet is universal, love to you, Rosemary, as well. Hope you guys kicked that troll-looking bastard out of your country finally. And the point is, because the internet and technology is now universal, you can take it with you wherever you want. So you can watch that stuff whenever you want. And for whatever reason, this is what gets pumped up by the algorithm, and this is what people are drawn to. Do I think that there is any true value at all to Candace Owens sitting down for a conversation with Andrew Wilson? Not at all. Complete waste of time, complete waste of effort, complete waste of money. Do not give this guy that satisfaction. Don't. First of all, he's going to go on there and he'll probably make a fool of himself. But in the end, that's not really his intention. The intention is to be prepared with a handful of talking points to try to dig at Candace, get her upset, and get some viral moments for the benefit of TPUSA. That's about it. But if you were asking me, I think in proper context, the word is appropriate, but yes, it becomes it becomes more of a fashionable word to just use in almost any circumstance. Tina, I don't know what you're saying is the best show ever. I shun at the thought, but you let me know which one you're referring to. But if I were, I definitely agree, Palsy. However, the fact that he is so Golden's right. The fact that he is so driven to draw attention, the fact that he is offering money, and we know it's not his money. He's not throwing that money around. Some rich Zionist is doing that for him, saying, I want you to debate Candace Owens. I want you to get her on. I want you to give her a piece of our mind. I want you to tell her exactly what we're thinking. That is exactly what their intentions are. That's their plan. So if I'm Candace, I understand. If you choose to go down this road, that's entirely your call. But if it were me and I were making that judgment call, I wouldn't give him the time of day, not even 5 minutes. This is a person who should be ignored. I want to conclude tonight with a story that I only came across earlier today, because I think it's very telling in terms of, we always say we want to have a little bit of pick-me-ups, ones that can be somewhat inspiring, if that's even possible, especially in light of everything that's going on right now. We say that the tide is turning against the Zio state. And it is. It's not happening as fast enough as we would like it to. But bear in mind, the changes that we've been pushing, the changes that we're after, we're not as far away as you think. And I'm going to show you here exactly what we mean by that. This is going to be a fairly lengthy segment because it's a long video, but it's very important. This is from a local city council meeting in an upper middle class area of the Chicago suburbs.
The homeless? You'd help anybody?
Yes, we do.
Or you just
We
protest?
do. We absolutely do.
I am a Zionist.
That's
Look
right.
at
Baby
the
killer.
definition.
That's right. Baby killer.
Yep, everybody knows what Zionism is.
What do you
Supremacy,
do?
baby killing.
What do you do for people? What do you do for people? Do you feed the homeless? You'd help.
Now, right out of the gate, and we're going to get into this a little bit more as we go forward, but one thing about affluent Zionist Jews is that they like to brag upon the fact that they have money against people who don't agree with them that don't. What have you done lately? Have you given to charity? That's very important in our culture. We give a lot of money away. Is it tax deductible? Bragging on that end, not a good look. But again, the stereotypes are real. We'll keep going.
Help anybody?
Yes, we do.
Or you just
We do.
protest?
We absolutely do.
Why are you interjecting? Why are you interjecting into our conversations,
Baby
Steinberg?
killer.
You
Baby
address
killer.
Nobody's
No,
talking to
you're
you.
talking to-
Nobody's talking
You're
to
just
you.
us.
Why do you need to interject yourself into our group? You're not part of our group.
He started it.
Why are you talking
called
to
me a
us?
baby killer.
Why are you?
He opened the
you
door
started
with his
talking
big
to
fat
our group.
mouth.
You started talking to our group.
I don't mind you guys talking.
He
Just
started.
please don't raise your voice.
Please ask him not to
Yes,
interject.
yes. Talk to him. He's the one coming and talking to
country.
us.
You keep saying that.
Okay, then. We're going to keep talking then.
We don't want to talk to
Talking
you.
Yeah,
private.
beat
We don't
it,
want to
baby
talk to
killer.
you.
Free country, free speech.
We don't want to talk to you. That's a very simple ask.
That's why he's masked.
Yep.
Yeah, I
He's a
don't
baby
blame
killer
you.
like you.
You're a terrorist.
Baby killer.
You're a Zionist ass, that's why.
I am a Zionist.
That's
Yeah,
right.
Look at
baby
the
killer.
definition.
That's right.
Baby killer.
Yep, everybody knows what Zionism is.
What do you
Supremacy,
do?
baby killing.
What do you do for people? What do you do for people? Do you feed the homeless? Do you help anybody?
Yes, we do.
And I often have to ask, in this context, when he says, do you do anything for people? Do you help them? Do you feed the homeless? Is that his way of saying, hey, I'm allowed to murder innocent babies if I want to? I give to the homeless. That's my way of cleansing my soul of the sins against humanity. In total defense of everything that they are going through at this point. Now, again, look, Dr. Steinberg, how old is this guy? I don't know, 70, I guess. This is in Hoffman Estates. Now, I actually was able to find out where this was located because there's a brief clip where I actually was able to catch a corner of the screen. Hoffman Estates is an upper middle class community in the Chicago suburbs. It's not some poor working class community. This is a community where people have ways and means. They have money. And they're telling him he's a baby killer. They're telling him he's an animal. As Jen has often said, he should never have a moment's peace. And this is his backyard in his very comfortable, affluent neighborhood that he lives in. He doesn't want to be bothered. He pays a good... That doctor who don't think he didn't show up to that meeting in his scrubs without it being intended for effect. He pays a lot of money to live that comfortable life. And believe it or not, he is going to spew some serious bullshit very shortly, so pay attention.
We do.
We actually do. We actually do.
We were here for
We protect the baby.
Do you know where Mount Zion is?
We protect the baby.
Of course you don't. Mount Zion's in Jerusalem.
I'm a business guy.
Yeah.
Turn around.
You need an education.
Look forward. I'm not interested.
The village board meeting's adjourned right now. So
Yes.
Sure. I'm not interested in talking to you.
obviously you don't want to learn anything.
No, not propaganda. Not baby killing.
3 years of genocide. We all saw it. We watched it.
No. You have the spelling wrong.
Yeah. Baby
4
killer.
years of suicide.
76 years of occupation and settling. Yeah, 78 years of settling, baby killing.
What's the capital
What
Palestine?
country? What country are you from? What country are you from? What country are you from?
What's the money of
What country are you from?
Palestine?
What country
What's
are you
the
from?
postage of
Before
Palestine?
1948, we had everything.
Whose army's funded by our tax dollars, bitch?
Oh, read that.
Not Hamas.
Read that.
Not Hamas.
Yeah, well,
But
you need
the
to read.
IDF sure is.
You read the figures.
Shut the fuck up, Zionist. Shut the fuck up.
Yes. Deal with them in this capacity. But I will say this, and that's why I said I wanted you guys to listen carefully to just how absolutely insane this was going to get. This is a person who, even on the surface, because you know that the numbers have never been properly calculated in terms of how many have been mass murdered in Gaza and now the West Bank. Let's just assume that in his mind, he's willing to go with what the official narrative is now saying, which is anywhere from 100 to 120,000 people are dead. He is insinuating that this wasn't genocide, that this was suicide. That's a first. I've never heard that before. That's what they're going with now? That they all just killed themselves. I mean, I've heard some really effed up shit in my life regarding the genocide and defense of the actions, but this one, this might be the worst one I've heard yet. Mass suicide. That's an original.
Folks, I believe the meeting's about to
You don't have an argument, which is why you're swearing.
I do.
No,
My
you
tax
don't.
dollars
You
fund
don't have
that
a cogent argument.
genocidal country. My tax dollars fund that genocidal country.
Okay, guys, the meeting's to start.
It's interesting how other people yell and scream, less credibility their argument has. On October 7th of 2023, Israel Music Festival was attacked. Children were beheaded. Children were
Lies.
placed in ovens.
Lies.
This is supposed to be a well-to-do, educated, successful man, and he's still going with what has universally been the debunked lie. The 40 beheaded babies. I mean, they were debunking that within a matter of months after it happened. We're nearly 3 years into this and they're still spewing that bullshit. Which again, if you think that this isn't about class, this isn't about supremacism, period. He's not interested in the truth. He's interested in his own truth in his own warped mind. But do you think he really cares if there's evidence to prove it? Not at all. He's never seen anything because he knows it's not true, but he doesn't care because it furthers his ideology. That is the only thing that matters here. By any means necessary. If you have to lie about it, lie about it. He doesn't feel safe.
I reclaim my time, Mr. Yes, sir. And young girls were gang raped and videotaped.
Lies.
Grandmothers were raped.
Lies.
And then hostages were taken.
Lies.
Most of them died in captivity.
Hannibal Derek tip.
And let the gentleman speak, please. Another word.
Propaganda. You let them do it? Go ahead, Steinberg. Do your lies.
They say the most outrageous things because they don't have an argument. What did they think Israel was going to do when they attacked so savagely? It was designed to get a response. If rockets continue, terrorist attacks continue, they didn't want Israel to stop. The word is not genocide. The word is suicide. They let their children in front to be the first ones killed. They put rockets in hospitals, underground tunnels. This is the most, and most Arab countries don't allow them in their country. What does that say? They've been thrown out of more countries than you can count.
The idea that he is going to talk about people getting thrown out of countries, the idea that he is going to stand in front of this city council and say that the Palestinian children were suicided. As we've said before, there is no negotiating with people like this. There is no conversing with them. They are intelligent people. This guy is probably a full-blown shitlib of the highest order, but it doesn't matter. Because when it comes to this issue, there is only what they choose to see, and they will not see anything else. So we have to fight back. That's our job.
When Kuwait was attacked by Iraq, the Palestinians in Kuwait, turned on the Kuwaitis. They're not welcome any place. They're so filled with hate. Lies from their great-grandmothers, their great-grandmother, their grandmother.
Just smiling.
Come on, knock it off. Be quiet. Let the gentleman speak.
You're yelling at a child.
Yep, you're yelling at a child. Very good, Mayor.
And then they come here and violate our Constitution, violate the state of Illinois Constitution. I agree with them on ICE. Anything that has to do with ICE. I'm not done. When it's quiet, I'll finish. This is how they disrespect our Constitution and our government and the United States. They're here just for one reason, propaganda. Seriously? What is your problem?
Back off, Steinberg. Back off.
This is the rudeness. This is why they're hated by most of the world. And they bring a cameraman as if it's going to do something.
What I found the most interesting about that exchange is that this little troll actually was gunning towards somebody like he was going to do something. Yeah, he was going to do something and then he was going to be out for the count. What was he going to do? Just going to take a shot at him and then expect all the guards to come to his defense? I didn't feel safe. I had to attack him. All 5'2" of him was really stalking that guy. He was really going to hurt him. Big time. But remember, he's a doctor, so he knows better.
and they have a loudmouth show up and they have to read because they don't know what to say if they don't read what they're told to read and everything. One last thing. There's a huge amount of information on data centers that nobody is reading. All the new things that they're going to do, not the old things that were being done.
Is ridiculous. It is beyond ridiculous.
The overwhelming.
But I honestly thought, like, after the comments, you were allowed to, like, ask questions because they didn't say anything about some of them.
You're all over TV.
I know. So will you, Zionist piece of shit.
Also, sir,
baby killer, you fucking baby killer. Do something. Do something. Do something.
Let me tell you something. He really was ready to throw because this was a woman that was giving him the business. If it was a man, he wouldn't have done such a thing. But you could see the way he turned around. He wanted to hit her. I'm telling you, there really is something to be said for these emasculated men who end up doing things like this, how they physically assault women and children because they can't stand up to men. This is what ends up happening. That's why for women like this, it's very dangerous when you're around guys like this because they'll try to hurt you. It is unfortunate, but this is the reality of what it means to be around guys like this.
Do something, bitch. Do something, bitch. Do something, bitch. Do something, you fucking baby killer, Zionist piece of shit. Zionist piece of fucking shit. Do something. Do something. Fucking Dr. Steinberg.
Step up to me, bitch. Woman, children. That's all you do.
You know you're... Do something. Do something, bitch. Do something, bitch. Do something, bitch.
Going to try this again. This clip was going really well, and then it decided to ick up on us. So let's try it one more time.
Fucking baby killer, Zionist piece of shit. Zionist piece of fucking shit. Do something. Do something. Fucking Dr. Steinberg.
Step up to me, bitch. Woman, children.
You know you're protected. You're protected by this pedophile clan. The Epstein fucking clan. That's who you're protected by. Look at this shit. Look at this shit. You know, it's ridiculous. It is beyond ridiculous.
The overwhelming.
But I honestly thought, like, after the comments, you were like,
Ben, why are we having such a problem now? Is there anything, is there any issue? Because I'm coming in clear. I don't know why this whole thing just kind of got like skewed at this point, but I want to be able to finish this out without it, sketching as hard, glitching as hard as it's glitching right now. Can't hear you. You're muted. Just put it in the private chat. It's fine.
they didn't say anything about some of them.
You're all over TV.
I know. So will you, Zionist piece of shit. Baby killer, you fucking baby killer. Do something. Do something. Do something. Do something, bitch. Do something, bitch. Do something, bitch. Do something, you fucking baby killer, Zionist piece of shit. Zionist piece of fucking shit. Do something. Do something. Fucking Dr. Steinberg.
Step up to me, bitch. Woman, children. That's all you do.
You're not protected. You're protected by this pedophile clan. The Epstein fucking clan. That's who you're protected by. Look at this shit. Look at this shit.
You
know who you have your back on? Your camera should be facing against this bastard. This Zionist piece of shit. You fucking Zionist. He came up to me. He stepped up to me. And then he like, do something. Do something, bitch. Do something. Do something. Yeah. You guys have been murdering Palestinians with fucking tax dollars. Hamas doesn't get funded. Those kids don't get funded. To be terrorist supporter. You're out of control. You're fucking terrorist. You guys are the ones bombing Lebanon, Syria. Look at this shit. Look at this army. Fucking tiny little man. Tiny little fucking woman beater. Watch out, baby killer. Woman beater, baby killer. That's what he is. That's why he needs this protection. He needs protection from everybody. From a woman. Bitch. Do something. Do something. Do something. You're gonna say You're gonna do something, right? That's what I thought.
You'll ruin your cause. Be careful.
I get the reference, Ant. I get that not everybody's going to get it, but I get big.
You ruin your own cause.
How do I ruin my cause?
That's
How do I ruin my cause?
Because you're lying. One lie after another.
All these dead babies, mutilated babies, are the whole world's eyes work.
Oh, there he goes to his Mercedes-Benz $100,000 SUV. Like I said, and we'll leave it there. This is a class war. It always has been, and it always will be. And a guy like this doesn't care at all. He doesn't want to know. But I thought it was very interesting how he needed a police escort at the end, because you could see that big hulking black man who was with those ladies said, "You're going to get in their face? Why don't you get in my face?" And then, of course, he ran off. Because like I said, there is something to be said when you're dealing with emasculated men who are willing to hurt women. And we've seen it. He probably would have hit her. I got the impression that he wanted to hit her. The truth hurts their ears. And honestly, I'm thinking, what exactly was the purpose of this meeting? And there's really only one thing that I could think of. The only thing that makes sense. And you know what that is, ladies and gentlemen? Hoffman Estates is a community that probably pays taxes to either Israel war bonds or God knows what else. Gives money to the IOF. And perhaps the people that are there, they're arguing that our money, that their tax dollars shouldn't go there. And that doctor steps to the plate and says, yes, the money should go there. It should go there because there's beheaded babies. And these people are terrorists. They're terrorizing me. I don't feel safe around here anymore. What are you going to do for me? Well, little old doctor man, we're not going to do anything. Did you see they needed 7 police officers to escort him back to his car? That's not good. That's a lot of I'm not feeling so safe anymore type of attitude. But you know what, guys? And in conclusion to this evening, this is an example of not having a moment's peace. But remember, if you don't hit them in their wallets, it's not going to matter. They're willing to put up with this. Heck, some of them are even willing to put up with getting their lights punched out. If we do not tangibly address this reality, that this is all connected to money and power, and the only way that we can deal with this issue is through BDS and worker co-op initiatives. That's it. And frankly, you don't want 1,000,001 reasons as to what you need to do in order to break the system. This just happens to be the most tangible way to do it. So believe me when I tell you, our goal here is to be as informative as we can possibly be about how we rectify our crumbling empire. The future is always in front of us. Thomas Paine always said, we have it within us to make the world over again. And we can, but we have to be smart about it. And one of the ways that we can absolutely do it is that. And form worker co-ops. I've pointed this out before. It's one of the things that I'm most proud of being a Floridian. Publix is probably the most recognizable Florida brand that exists in the state. And Publix is a very conservative family that owns or started the company. But you know what they do? They have worker co-ops. 80% of the company is owned by the workers, 20% by the family. Imagine if we lived in a country where that was the law, where that's one of the ways that we could alleviate this problem. That's why people who work at Publix love working there, and they work there for their career in many cases. That's not an accident. It's an anomaly within the system, because the people who are the Jeff Bezoses and the Walton families and the Zuckerbergs and the Musks of the world, the Gateses of the world, they don't see it that way. They see it as, fuck them, take them for all they're worth. We can learn a lot about what works, what has worked, and will continue to work. I like pointing out, and it is, let me tell you, especially in light of the fact that Jersey Mike's has been taken over by private equity, the best place for a sub, Publix. And I feel bad for anywhere around the country that doesn't have that luxury. There's a reason why Publix is rated the #1 grocer in the nation. So, got to take a little pride in that, right? We don't have a lot here to brag about here in Florida, but we got that one. And it's a good model to follow. And I will also say, and this is very important, what you also have to remember here, smash that like button, guys, again, if you haven't done it just yet. We've had a very consistent crowd this evening. We almost got to 700 live viewers, but the more likes, the more comments, the more shares, the better we will do once the stream drops. The point here, David Hunter, this is where being too ideologically pure will be the death of everybody. One family gets 20% and the other gets 80%, is owned by 260,000 employees. Guess what? The 20%, that family started the company. They took the financial risks. They took on all of the financial risks. They are entitled to ownership. Now, if you don't like that, this is how economics works all over the world. The difference, of course, is that in other parts of the world, there are checks and balances. We don't have that here. The Publix family chooses to do this. They are under no obligation to do it, and yet they do it. In other parts of the world, you have to work on behalf of the people. The only way to stop human greed, or the only way to temper human greed, but also feed the human spirit, is to have checks and balances, to have government and business work in conjunction, not separate, because in the end, corporate special interests will engulf it all. And that's what we're setting out to stop. And in the end, very important, these stories about the Zionists having a hard time getting around, getting confronted, oh, it's going to keep getting worse. This is just one example of that. So pay close attention, because those stories are going to pop up more and more and more. And little by little, piece by piece, day by day, we get closer to the river to the sea, where Palestine will finally be free. If you've enjoyed this conversation, which we hope you have, guys, please consider once again going over to patreon.com/revolutionary change for as little as $5 a month. You can become a supporter of our small but mighty, despite heavily suppressed, yet still growing channel. And we do want to give a shout out to our additional super chatters that checked in. Let's give a shout out to Nuts. I think that's how you say it. Thank you for the $5, brother. PETA, you're all right in my book. I am here for the Reagan impressions and the inspirational anger. Keep talking your shit. Well, I can appreciate a person who appreciates my ego, and I will indulge you with a little bit of little old Ronnie. Nancy, where are you? Oh, she's over there. She's just fine and watching out for me to make sure that I do my job. And I hope you've enjoyed it tonight. Ezelor, member for 4 months. Appreciate you, my friend. Charlie's security team did it for Zionist money. All the actions of the security team was highly questionable during that moment, wasn't it? Teresa with the $2, 640 watching, not a payday week. Still appreciate you and your amazing support, my friend. Citizen Pendejo with the 20 pesos. The debate won't happen. Wilson knows he is outgunned. It's not even a question of whether he's outgunned. He's just doing everything in his capacity to try to make Candace look bad. I mean, let's be honest. That's really the driving force there. Alex Godmittens with the $2. I was the first one on the chat. Fantastic show. Appreciate you as always for being here, my friend. And how about a $10 contribution? What does it behoove us conservatives to vote for JPAC, APAC, etc. politicians if they're going to vote for bombing children outside the womb? Unborn and born. I'm pro-life inside and outside the womb. And that's why I respect you, Alex. You are a man of principle, even if we don't agree on everything. Thank you very much for your support. I'm driving faster. Now, that not necessarily be a good thing. Let's just keep that in mind. But I like wherever you are, my friend. It looks like a very beautiful lake, probably some really tasty fish. With the $2, hello, everyone. I'm new here. Chris, we really appreciate you being here, my friend. Guys, let's give Chris a big, warm welcome. We always like seeing new people in the chat on a regular basis. Chris, when the live stream is over, please leave a comment and a like and a share if you can. Driving faster wants us to go 300 miles an hour? That's a little quick. Or how about a 149 mile an hour sticker? I'll take that too. We really appreciate you being here, Chris. Thank you so much. Judith Ann Campbell with the $10 contribution. How did Zionists get to be so dumb? How? How to explain the total lack of self-awareness or awareness of anything? I'll tell you why. Think of it as the Nepo baby syndrome. When you grow up in affluence and you're always told you're right and never question anything, how do you think things will ultimately pan out for you once you're in the real world and you're not within your comfort zone? You're not within that protective, captive bubble you've been accustomed to. You know, Jen has pointed this out many times before. One of the most common elements that we face on a regular basis when it comes to dealing with Zionists, they always like to live amongst themselves. They don't like outsiders. That's why they dominate certain communities, certain regions. They don't want people coming in there telling them they're wrong. That's how they get to be so egotistically stupid. So this should not come as any surprise. How do you think that Dr. Steinberg felt about being amongst the commoners? Probably made his skin crawl. He's like, I got to be with these plebs? They're not worthy of my air. We'll see what happens as we go forward. 744 Pete with the $10. Employee co-ops are great. Seek them out. Patronize them. Couldn't agree more, my friend. And finally, Marvin Vargas with a $1.99. What going on with Randy Pine race? Unfortunately, my friend, and unfortunately for a lot of our supporters here, Randy Pine is going to win his election. I don't like saying it. I don't like admitting it. But we have to keep it real. And unfortunately, between Aaron Baker and Dan Bilzerian, who again, don't know what he was setting out to do in the first place, but being what it is, it really speaks to a very big problem. And this comes full circle with the conversation regarding what happened with Shama's campaign in Seattle. What inevitably is going to happen if people don't like some of the moves that El-Sayed is going to make in Michigan. They already don't like the fact that he has accepted the support of Kamala Harris. I don't like it either, but I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Actions will always speak louder than words. We have to be strategic. And we'll see. I am not getting my hopes up about anyone in particular. And thank you, Ben, for putting that out there. Guys, YouTube is where it's at. So if you're watching And if you could, at the very least, make sure that you are subscribed here. Please do. Make sure that you smash that like button. That also helps out a great deal. Make sure that you share the stream. Make sure that you're also subscribed on Rumble. I want to give a big shout out to our Rumble supporters. I didn't see any Rumble rants tonight. However, I do want to also give a very big shout out because you guys have been great. I've been noticing a lot of comments coming in from Rumble. It looks like we did a pretty good job there tonight. So guys, hats off to you for supporting us there. But again, if you're on Instagram, if you're on Facebook, if you're on X, if you're on Rumble, if you haven't already subscribed here on YouTube, it would be highly appreciated if you do. We're beating them one way or the other. You could call it whatever you want, but this is where our channel has the most impact. So we have to go with what we have. And with amazing supporters like each and every one of you, we will get where we're trying to go. That revolutionary change we seek, we'll look back on it one day and say, I never thought we'd get there until we finally do. And it will be remembered fondly for all the hard work and efforts that we put in. At times it does feel futile, but remember, the hard is what makes it great. There will come a time where we will be able to breathe for a moment and remember that our efforts were not in vain. Smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things we ask you to do. We love you all. We appreciate you all. We'll see you Monday. And free Palestine. Good night, guys.